Ooh! Can't speak without my tooth in. If I put it back in the habit always goes into the same place. He says, oh, there it is, naughty boy. Didn't put it back in that bag that it lives in. Right. I'm going to share, if I get round to it, the most embarrassing lifetime shocking event, which is terribly sad. But the reason I'm going to share it, there are two reasons. Oh no, somebody's coming down. I hope they don't park near me. Right, let's quickly get to it. See, I've just been stood here for an hour, nobody else here. Right. The mix. Your mind, oh good, no, that's staying up there. Your mind and body. I have only in my past one truly interesting, maybe mind-body period. The mix. The soul, what's going on in your life, in other words, the outside angsts, pressures, events that come now and again, and I will say even to me, because I'm literally a world expert at having no psychodrama in my life. I saw through psychodrama 30, in fact, when I was about 15. Nah, stay aside. Good for me. But here's the one period. Now I categorically believe there is something else other than our material reality that we experience here. This ground. I can smash my head against that car. There's somebody else coming down as well. Anybody not C2 and above, whenever they come to a car park, they look at everybody else, and we've got. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. C2 and above keep their head in their own life or whatever. C2 and below, and that's kind of a slightly shortcut way of saying just the ordinary middle class shit television watching. This person coming down here, as soon as he got out of his car and saw there was somebody standing around, it's like gawping. And I don't want to have anything to do. One of my schisms is no, they're lost. They have nothing original to make, say, or create themselves, so they just gawp. Right. Okay, so, and such people wouldn't be able to listen to the following, which is medical. In terms of medical, now I'm somebody I put in an earlier video, despite having parents who would consider themselves upper middle class, I ran off with the locals, the yokels, the good down-to-earth people. Young. That's me. But age 18, 20, 22, when you're at that point in life where you haven't quite got your mode worked out, your mode of how to set yourself, your approach to things like health. I categorically, I think it might be too windy out there. Categorically, you do not go to the doctor unless there's something really serious with you, because you'll be using somebody else's slot. Now, without that being the exact setting, through life, I've kind of gradually incorporated that. Of course there are moments when you've got a really bad flu or something like that where you're thinking, should I call and get somebody to come and attend to me? Particularly a lot of my last 25 years I've lived in very remote places up in the hills where there isn't a neighbour to go and knock on or a friend to phone up, because it would be such a imposition for them to come and get you a chicken soup and check you're okay. No. And almost, always, I just don't make that call. Very quickly, because this isn't part of it, but in 2020, 2 weeks into the pandemic, a mole I'd had there for years, quite a big mole, suddenly started to grow. Over about 2 weeks, I started to notice it. I've got another one here. There. And I had one on the top of my head about 6 months ago. Anyway, that one, this isn't reckless. I mean, this was just a beautiful example, in fact. So, on our news, Radio 4 all the time, oh, doctors are all closed, can't get anybody to do anything, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, because I'm not stupid. It's like, ah, shit. That's absolutely guaranteed. Every symptom of a dangerous melanoma. That's it. And it grew and it grew. And then it gradually started to bleed. Just there. Started to bleed. It had probably grown that big. And I just like, well, I had something else on my mind. I had hurt, lost, damaged, although she won't like me saying so. Daughter. How's my daughter going to get through this period? How's her age group? What was she, 20 then? That was the main thing on my mind. And the second thing on my mind, no rural people left. None. So, if I get the lurgy, who's going to look after my ferrets? Because ordinary people that come and live in the countryside can't deal with animals that aren't cats and dogs and goldfish. So this comes up, it's like, that's it. Absolutely guaranteed. I mean, every single warning of a serious melanoma, rapidly growing. So I just like, after a few days, like, I didn't even look it up. I already knew. Under normal circumstances, you go and get that looked at quickly. But I didn't. I thought, no, I'm not gonna. Yeah, at the end of the day, if I even got through to the medical person on, 111, how does one get prioritised? Like, anyway, so I started to photograph it in the mirror. I'm serious, like, this is it. I'm going to be dead in 3 weeks. Grow. Bleeding. So I thought, okay, I'll turn it into a series of, I have the pictures, I should put them. Here, I will. Got so many bits and bobs. Anyway, one morning I got up, and it really had grown that big. And it wasn't there anymore. It had just dropped off. And actually, that's the one instance in my life I thought, I didn't think I was being reckless. It's just like, I can see through the hysteria that's developing late March 2020, and it was. Within a few weeks, it was crystal clear. This is essentially 3 times a pneumonia, meaning there is 3 times the death rate of a pneumonia. Pneumonias, which are both bacterial and viral, and there's a third cause for pneumonia. Yeah, they take out a certain, I think they take out about 40 or 50,000 people every year of varying ages, including young people. And we do not even talk about pneumonia. Or at the very least, if we're going to talk about this new thing, before you talk about it, get plenty of exercise, get plenty of UV, because they boost your immune system. If you have a SARS type of virus around, then SARS-CoV-3 or whatever they call it, one thing's for sure, When you're a parent, you learn about absolutes. It's an absolute. Even no matter whether or not this thing turns out to be terribly infectious, knocking everybody out immediately, whatever, your chances are better if your natural immune system is boosted, which exercise and being out in UV and also having a good spirit has a major effect on it. Right, I didn't intend talking about that, but anyway, you can't talk about it other than the only thing I'm interested in, because I spend 3 or 4 months connecting with various people face to face, randomly bumping into people I vaguely knew. Hey, come on, I understand science, which I do. If you've looked after animals a lot, done farming, and also, as I happen to have a large library of evolutionary biology stuff, without a doubt, no matter how efficacious this thing is, or whatever you want to say, the absolute is give yourself the best chance by boosting yourself. Where I lived, you could walk for miles without meeting anybody. Anyway, to the point. The only time that I lived in a region, a quarter of the population of this, roughly across the board, and interestingly, famously, the local doctor was called Kington Killers, a large amalgamated surgery. I think the catchment was about 7,000 people. Small town, about 2,000 people, and then villages for a 10-mile circle. Let's be crystal clear. Doctors on strike again recently or whatever, I've lost track. They shouldn't be going on strike for more pay. They should be going on strike against themselves. That surgery has had, last time I was there, 3 years ago, no, it wasn't 3 years ago, it was longer ago, 5 years ago, a list of 40 doctors. 2 or 3 who are full-time, permanent, the rest of them locum. But they're not like locum pop in and cover a day and go around saving the population by going around all sorts of surgeries out of necessity. The great majority choose to be locum. They get essentially paid 3 times the rate per hour. More importantly, they have no accountability. Why do I say that? Because I had 7 years ago my few years of mixed virus bacterial that probably originated from living in somewhere with so much damp and mould. I didn't even think about it, but that's probably the actual cause that depleted my system such that other things could get in. And I lived in a sort of like almost a private hidden away hamlet that took housing benefit if necessary. That was the critical thing. And I lived in the one that had been totally not converted at all for 300 years. It was literally built on a swamp. Anyway, it was paradise other than that. But here's the thing. So, yeah, going to the doctors. First thing 7 years ago when I had to go, and I had something that was pulling me down. I waited a year, 9 months before I went. First thing the doctor says, the one doctor is, who's a locum it turns out, is, most important thing, you have continuity, because we're going to have to investigate this. As you can see, some symptoms were obvious, not in my head. Continuity. Going back and forth over about a year and a half, I never saw the same doctor once. I mean, it's a joke. And the reason for that is not because of cuts, failure to keep up with demand, but the demand is the problem. People shouldn't be going on farming today, they said today. In a practice, the average 2.5 visits a year has gone up to 8 visits a year per person, average per person. Right? It's a joke. But the doctors choose to be locum. So they can say to you, this particular one, I couldn't name her, and she was born in this town. I will make sure I see you several times over the next few months. No, you need continuity. And then when you don't get continuity, she has no responsibility. But she's doing 1 or 2 days a week there and putting on her Facebook. Oh, and I'm going once a month to save the refugees at that time coming ashore in Greece. Makes her look good, and the only reason she can afford to do that is because essentially pro rata she's getting double the rate, and no accountability, flexi hours, can chop and change her hours anytime she wants. Doctors should be going on strike for a 35-hour working week, permanent contract, just like any other civilized country. That's what the average worker does, and you have far better productivity. In other words, they're making fewer mistakes on the job or doing less total people-pleasing fraud out of their mouth. Anyway, the one time apart from that I thought, right, okay, I want to get something fixed. For 4 or 5 years I'd had fungus in my nails. Now, here's the interesting bit. You know, the doctors, they make out that they're experts. They're not. They didn't even know if it was fungus or possibly psoriasis. But you don't get any tests. You don't. You know, they should at least do a test, even if they have to say, listen, we'll have to do a cheap test, take 2 months to get the results back, but we need to find out, is it fungus or psoriasis? And for 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite bad. It used to go halfway down my nails quite often. This is 15 years ago. So it was 4 or 5 years I just said, oh, whatever, just ignore it. But